Hello, Karen from Emerging Soul Tarot with your daily read, using the Shamanic Healing Oracle again today. So I'll pull us some cards and see what Spirit wants to bring for us today. Having trouble with my shuffle, my hands are cold. Really cold here in the UK, unseasonably cold. Okay, so let's have a look what we have. We have self-love, psychic development and changes. And the overall energy for us is emotional release. Okay, so I think quite clearly the cards are just saying, you know, in the four titles: self-love, emotional release, self-love, psychic development, changes. So we had solstice yesterday. We got a lot of Plutonian energies, which are the death, rebirth energies around at the moment cosmically. So Spirit is bringing us in a message here, almost of a process. I think yesterday the message came about forgiveness, releasing forgiveness. So if you watched yesterday, then you know that process of forgiveness is actually self-love. You know, we think a lot of the people we love, we give them a lot of space, patience, benefit of the doubt, but when it comes to ourselves, we can often be really tough on ourselves. You know, we've got much higher expectations. We've got a higher bar when it comes to how we behave. We often have an intolerance. So Spirit is highlighting this today. Often the problem with our issues of self-love is because we have a problem accepting imperfection in ourselves. So we kind of repress the emotional feelings we have. We're talking about emotional release here. But to accept yourself is to accept your imperfection. You know, perfectly imperfect, we all are. So the question to ask yourself today is, do you demand a higher standard, a higher bar for yourself than you do for the people that you love? And the other issue with self-love is it can sometimes be this conditioning we had programmed really into us as children. So it's a sense of retreating within and looking at, you know, when you hear that negative voice, that little voice that starts chatting to you, you know, just go within and say to yourself, where's that coming from? Where is that rooted? This is part of our work to kind of, you know, constantly be self-aware. It's very hard to have that self-awareness when you're judging yourself, when you're listening to that inner judgment and inner critical voice. You know, and if that happens for you, just stop and ask yourself, would you think of another like that? There may be under there a repressed pain and sadness which may be difficult to look at. But we're talking here about psychic development. Now, if we block ourselves, we don't have that positive view of ourselves, and we block down emotional pain, and we can't move on to that sort of real psychic development, which is the development of discernment. And part of the development of discernment is being fully in our bodies. When the energy isn't flowing, when we have, I call it our wells are blocked, through this emotional blocking, we're not releasing, we're not opening and releasing, we're not surrendering, then we end up blocking that ability to discern, because we're in a place of critical judgment of ourselves. And we need to relate to ourselves with the tolerance, the love, the acceptance, all that we give out to other people. Spirit is saying, are you giving that to yourself? Is there a balance in what you give out and how you view yourself? And if there isn't that, if you are looking at things that you've got wrong, you may be stuck in something that you did do wrong and judging yourself. But that flow needs to come, the release needs to come, so that the energetics in your body can flow. And then we become fully embodied, when we've got this lack of self-love. We're not fully embodied, we're in our heads, we're listening to, and it's ego all the same, even if it's self-depreciating, if it's a lack of self-worth, it's still an kind of inverted ego. So instead of, we always look at ego as being cocksure or, overly confident, but actually the ego is our, in a sense, our little self, our false self. And the ego will constantly stop you from connecting, truly connecting with your true essence, your soul self. So a real call today to have a look at how you connect to yourself, how you are, because there are changes coming. And this changes came up the other day. This is a sense of dropping a stone into the pool and the ripples out. So if you've got, a really simple analogy that's coming to my mind at the moment is where you drop something or you make a mistake and you say silly cow or silly arse or something really negative, kind of you berate yourself. Watch out for those things, because it may only be a tiny thing, but it actually reflects, and your words and thoughts are really, really powerful, and it reflects a deep down sense of yourself. If somebody, again, if somebody drops something, would you say silly cow, stupid arse, or whatever it is you berate yourself with? Would you do that to someone else? Because it's time people to level up in terms of our self-love. And a lot of us, and I think females in particular, have been taught to be sort of self-depreciating. It's a false sense of femininity. Obviously men have as well in different families, but I think particularly for females, we're often taught through society or family or school to depreciate our worth. It's big-headed, it's unfeminine, it's whatever the storyline is in you, to really have that sense of self-worth, self-confidence, to promote yourself, to be able to shine with who you are. Self-love is not a negative thing. In fact, if you can't love yourself, then you've got blockages there with the flow of energy, the flow down of source coming through you. So this little stone in the pond, if it's just that little thing I'm talking about, you imagine if you drop a little pebble of beauty about yourself, just find something and you drop it, that too is going to have massive ripples. So those changes are to almost shift the dross that's floating on the water. So look at what small changes you can make in terms of your sense of self-worth, you know, and be honest. We have a full moon coming up in a few days, and I'll be doing a full reading for that. But you know, it would be a good time at that full moon to release emotionally. If there's pain under this sense of lack of self-worth, it will be a good time. Full moons are very good for release. But it will also be a good time to release patterns of behaviour. You may not know where they come from, but to sort of surrender to the beauty of who you are. You know, you in all your glory. So it'll be a good time to surrender to that under this full moon, and to decide, again, little changes, you know, even if it's you can't see that, you know, lack of self-love. If there's that little thing where you call yourself a name or berate yourself when you make a mistake, then under this full moon, release that and just choose not to do that to yourself. And you'll find there's quite an enormous struggle in there, but the minute you choose not to, the ego will bring in all sorts. It will shift up, it will bring to the surface all stuff, and that will be the beginning of emotional release. And it's usually not one thing. It looks almost innocuous on the surface. It looks as though it's not a big thing, but there's often a very deep root under those things we see as tiny, you know, as tiny. There could be you know, a sense of, I hear spirits saying, for some people there be this fear of failure. So the lack of self-love, the you know, inverted ego that gives you a sense of lack of self-worth, could actually be the fact that down under that are these roots of fear of failure. So while you're saying I'm not good enough, or I can't do this, or I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not talented enough, or whatever that rhetoric is in your mind, Spirit is saying under that root is really fear. And this is the opposite of love. So these things need to be released, because we need to be fully embodied. We need to be, the energy needs to be able to rise up, because this is what we're doing constantly. And fear and lack of self-worth is issues with chakra energy in your root and your sacral and your solar plexus. And though actually those chakras need to be flowing, so that we can get flow into our heart, so that the energy can move up and we can have that access to our self-expression, pure, you know, bright self-expression, and plumb in intuitively, bodily intuitively, use our discernment to bring out our gifts and to tap into the all that is, that will bring massive changes. So yeah, Spirit is saying you may think those little things you say to yourself are not all that important. They're massively important. Imagine, if you're a parent, you can imagine, take one. A good exercise I done was to take one thing I said that seemed innocuous, and imagined myself repeating that to a child, you know, 3-4 times a week, year on, year out, and then really look at what that would do to that child's self-confidence, their ability to express themselves. So yeah, so this is the message from Spirit today. So I'm going to pull us a daily healing, but don't pass over those things. You know, we need to connect to ourselves in a loving, compassionate, embracing way. And that means embracing all our faults. You know, we're all got faults. We've all got weaknesses. We've all got limitations. But embrace ourselves with as much kind of gusto and love and, you know, understanding as we do for others. Really, really important lesson to learn. Because there's massive development that comes from that, massive changes, and it's beautiful. There you go. Know that the truth is a living force, whether you believe in it or not. So that talking yourself down, not believing in your self-worth, not being compassionate, that is actually a truth to you. It's from the ego, but if that is your truth, it's a force, and those ripples on that pond will colour the whole of your life. Change that truth to I am beautiful, I am powerful, I am loving. You know, anything to look at your talents and your abilities and who you are as a person. I'm honest, I'm truthful, I'm faithful, I'm whatever those things are. That truth, yeah, it'll ripple out. It will ripple out throughout your whole life. It will bring massive changes and it will embody you in flow. So release those emotions, you know, that are holding you back. And underneath these small things can be a torrent of emotion. Not always, but there can be. Or fears. And if you need to focus on your chakras, there's loads online, but I have got a playlist, I'll link it above, chakra meditations. But yeah, know that truth is a living force, whether you believe in it or not. So make your truth beautiful, people. Yeah. All right, lots of love. I hope that was helpful. If you enjoy, like, subscribe and comment. All right, lots of love. Bye bye.